We are looking at section 3.6, example 3. So we had done few problems. There were two left here, and I asked you to gather the information about the function so that we can sketch the graph of the function. So I have the information here, all the things that we wanted to extract from the given function. So the domain, the x-intercept is 3, y-intercept is negative 0.3, the vertical asymptotes and the horizontal asymptotes. And then I checked if the graph crosses the it's horizontal asymptote or not. So we found that it will cross at x is equal to 3, which is the x-intercept. And then I found the sign chart. So now let's try to sketch the graph. I have already sketched the drawn the asymptotes, and one is at -5. We will write the equation: x is equal to -5 and x is equal to 4. And the horizontal asymptote, I didn't have enough space here to put the tick marks. Actually, I should have drawn the graph, sketched the graph in landscape, because we have more stuff going on x-axis than we have on y-axis. On y-axis, only the graph will hug the vertical asymptotes. Okay, so we can always start from the left side, but it is okay, we can start anywhere. So we can start from the right side or left side. So starting from the left, I found that the region to the left of -5 here is positive. So it means that it's going to be above x-axis. Because we don't have two lines now. Previously, remember in one of the examples, when we had horizontal asymptote different than the x-axis, then when there were two regions between the x-axis and negative infinity, that were positive, where the if the graph shows positive, then we had to figure out where it would be in both those examples. But here, because it's x-axis is our horizontal asymptote, so we only have to worry if the positive sign, it means it is above the x-axis. So it means the graph is going to be in this region. So, but how will it be? We have no other information about it. So how will the graph be? Well, the only thing we know is that we have asymptotes. Y is equal to 0 is an asymptote, which is our horizontal axis, and then x is equal to -5 is a vertical asymptote. So if the graph is going to be positive in this region, then we will have our graph will hug the vertical asymptote while going towards infinity. So, for example, if you have calculator, you can pick a point over here which is very close to -5. For example, -5.2 or -5.1, and plug in the function and try to see what number you get. I am assuming that you will get a number, bigger positive number, like I don't know. I mean, you can check. So, but since in the exam you are not allowed the calculator, so I am not recommending that you do it, here. What you have to remember is that the graph has to hug the asymptote. So you cannot make a graph which crosses the asymptote, or which just I mean, just goes away from the asymptote. So or it cannot be something like this, okay, because it won't then be hugging the asymptote. And then also the graph cannot be like this because it has to hug the horizontal asymptote. So the shape of the graph is what we will see typically in rational functions. It will be something like this. It's coming down from here, and then or you can say we are going up here like that, and along the horizontal axis we are going like this. So you can join these two pieces, something like that is happening. So not it should be straight, I mean not curved here. Just take care of that. So maybe a little better than this would be something like that. Okay. Now just don't make an L type shape. So when we come to go to the right side of the -5, we notice that the graph is going to be negative. So from -5 until 3, 3 is over here, and this is -5. So in this broad section, the graph is below the x-axis. And we notice that the x-intercept is 3, and the y-intercept was -0.3. Okay, this value, the y-intercept is -0.3. So it has to cross the x-axis at 3, and it has to cross the y-axis at -0.3. So how should the graph be? So in this region, from here, in this region, the graph is below x-axis, over here below x-axis, but from 3 onwards, 3 to 4, it is above x-axis. So how can we figure out how the graph will look like? Well, if it is going to be below x-axis, then it means that it should hug the asymptote. So it must be over here. And then it is crossing it will come towards its intercept, the y-intercept will cross the y-intercept, it will cross the y-axis like this, and it is still stays below x-axis, and then it goes towards its intercept like that. Now in this region of the graph is above the x-axis. So above the x-axis means now we have an asymptote. So it means the graph is going to go with the asymptote. Okay. So this is how the graph should look like in these regions. So now what about the portion to the right of 4 to the right in this last region? So the graph could be up here or could be down here. So what is it? Okay, the sign chart tells us that it is negative. So the sign is negative, which means the graph will be down below the x-axis. So how will it be? Well, again, the only information we have is that this is a vertical axis and asymptote, and the x-axis is the horizontal asymptote. So the graph will be going like this. So that's how we graph this function. Okay, here I have drawn a little better picture. So this is how the graph looks like. Okay. So note here, in some problems we have seen that the graph stays between the two vertical asymptotes. The graph stays below the x-axis. In some cases it stays above the x-axis. So if that is the situation, then we will have something like this. Then it won't cross the x-axis in that region. And if so, basically these are some things that you have to should be able to figure out while graphing, and this can only be done by practice. Let us look at the next example quickly. So I have all the information here. I have sketched the axes, and let's start graphing. Okay, this time I'm going to come from the left, because if you try from the if I will come from the right. If we try from the left, let's see what happens. So, well, this is the asymptote. Horizontal asymptote is the x-axis. So the graph is either going to be like this or like that. So it is going to hug the asymptote either from the top or from the bottom, or below the x-axis or from above the x-axis. So if we look at our sign chart, so this is saying that the graph will be positive. Positive until when? Positive until -3. So -3 is over here, and -3 was the x-intercept. So it means it is going to cross. So now the question is, if it is going to cross the x-axis, then how is it going to hug the x-axis when x is bigger? So we will come to this side later. Okay, let's look at the right side. So the right side is saying the graph is in the positive region, so it is above the x-axis. So our typical usual graph, something like, to be more accurate, you can actually find some values, make a table of values, and if possible, because again you don't have a calculator, so make sure you pick values which you can easily plug in and simplify and get some estimate of the where we should be. So it looks like if you take a number close to 2, like 2.01 or even 2.1, you should be getting a big positive number. Okay, and what about on the left side, left of 2? Well, on between the asymptote, which is at -1, and 2, so between these two asymptotes, x is equal to -1 and x is equal to 2, we have our graph is below the x-axis because we have a negative sign there. Okay. So let me reinforce these signs. This is positive, this is negative, this is negative, and this is positive. Okay, so when it stays below the x-axis, over on the right hand side, when we cannot do it like the other one, because if we come from here like this, we are not going to go up across the x-axis because we don't have an x-intercept in this region. So it means we have to turn back. Now, when turning back, you don't know what will be the highest point or where the turn will happen. So just roughly, because it's an easy value, we have the value at 0, which is -1.5. You can try to find the value at 1. So when x is equal to 1, we plug in, your y will be equal to 4 on the top. 1 plus 1 whole square is 4. So I'm getting 2 square times -1. So which is 4 over negative 4, which is negative 1. So nice value here. So it means it has to go up there, and maybe that is, we can assume that is the highest value. So the graph should come like this, and then turn something like that. Okay, now we come to the leftmost side. So again, between negative 1 and negative 3, or negative 3 and negative 1, the graph is below x-axis, so which means it will be hugging the vertical asymptote x is equal to negative 1 down here, and then it will go up, will cross the x-axis at negative 3. But now that is a question, where do we go now? So actually, this is like one of the previous graphs. It will cross the x-axis and it will go up a little bit and then come back to hug the axis. Now how high it goes, that we cannot, we cannot know unless we do some calculations. But as I said, it's not easy to do the calculations without the calculator, so you guys can just turn it anywhere, any reasonable shape. So this is how we graph the rational functions.